I have always believed that the ocean is a keeper of secrets, some gentle, some monstrous, and some simply waiting just to be unfolded. The sun had barely started warming the sand when Daniel finished setting up his lifeguard post. He always did extra shifts on weekends, partly for the pay, partly because he liked the rhythm of it, because the rescue park in the mornings smelled of wet fish buckets, sunscreen, and that faint electrical hum from the dolphin tanks that you can hear only when it's very quiet. By noon, the beach was full. The waves were soft, and Daniel was thinking about lunch when he heard someone screaming. A man was thrashing in the water, too far out, swallowed by sudden rip current. Daniel didn't hesitate. I'm told he dove so fast that the girl sunbathing beside him didn't even realize he'd moved. He pulled the man out, shaking, coughing, red-eyed and embarrassed, and had just turned to wave at the people clapping on shore when something else caught his attention. A shape. A slanted grey shape further down the coast, struggling like it didn't belong in the waves anymore. Daniel squinted, wiped the seawater from his eyelashes, and muttered to himself, "That looks like a dolphin." But dolphins don't swim that way, not unless something is very wrong. He called the rescue park team immediately. Within 20 minutes, the crew from the marine truck arrived, lifting the creature gently into the water's treasure. Up close, she was beautiful, sleek, silver-skinned, with a few scratches near her dorsal fin and a strange calmness in her eyes. Someone from the crew said to Daniel, "She's an adult female. You did good, boy. We'll take it from here." Daniel nodded, but didn't move. He kept staring at her like she was trying to tell him something. Later, they named her Lola. At the time, no one knew how heavy the name would become. Fred arrived 2 days later, carrying a laptop that was too full of messy notes and a heart too full of Nayomi. Fred was a MSc research student obsessed with dolphin echolocation. Nayomi was an animal specialist intern who loved the dolphins more gently than anything anymore. The two were supposed to work independently, but love doesn't follow academic guidelines, so they were inseparable, moving around the tanks together, arguing softly about sound patterns and diets, whispering inside jokes they thought no one noticed. To the dolphins, they were a pair. To Lola, they were nothing. That was the first sign. Fred told Nayomi as they stood beside the pool, "It's strange, most dolphins make friends within a day, but Lola, she doesn't join the pot." Naomi tucked her hair behind her ear and answered softly to Fred, "Maybe she needs time. She looks tense." But time passed, and Lola stayed apart. She didn't whistle when other dolphins approached. She avoided the trainers. She ignored the floating toys that excited every other dolphin on the park. She just hovered, watching the water surface like she was listening to something only she could hear. Fred kept observing her behavior, logging notes every day. Sometimes he stared at them with Daniel, who stopped by after beach duty. Sometimes with Nayomi, who always smiled at him like she already knew he had discovered something new. One morning, Fred leaned over a tank and spoke to Nayomi. "Listen to this. This is Lola's vocalization from yesterday, and it's not echolocation." Naomi glanced up. "Then what is it?" Fred frowned. "I don't know. That's the problem." Lola wasn't communicating like a dolphin. She was communicating like something else. Fred recorded hours of audio. Clicking bursts, low pulses, strange frequency jumps. Dolphins communicated for many reasons. Navigation, hunting, playing, bonding. But Lola's pattern had none of those emotional rhythms. It was structured, repetitive, almost like encryption. Fred didn't like thinking that word, but he did. He finally brought the data to his supervisor, Dr. Elena Frost, sharp-minded, sharp glasses, sharp patience. In her office, she listened to the audio, her brows slowly lifting. Fred said to her, "This isn't normal vocalization, Dr. Frost." Dr. Frost replied, "You're right. It is too deliberate, too consistent." She looked directly at him. "Schedule a CT scan. I want to see if there is a neurological abnormality." So they did. And when the CT scan image appeared on the screen, Fred leaned closer, almost pressing his forehead against the glass. Inside, Lola's head was a speck of something metallic, a device, a fragment, something that didn't belong. The head veterinarian, Dr. Higgins, stood with folded arms and declared, "Most likely trash. Dolphins get into all sorts of debris. Could be from an accident when she was young." The explanation comforted everyone except Fred. But the decision was made: remove the fragment. The surgery was successful. The object was tiny, barely the size of a rice grain. Fred held his breath as they placed Lola back into the recovery pool. And then it happened. Lola stopped moving. Her eyes stayed open, but she was gone inside a vegetative state. People panicked. Nayomi cried. Daniel clenched his fist and walked out because he couldn't bear watching her float lifeless. Dr. Higgins whispered, "This shouldn't be happening. It was just a debris." It took Fred to say what everyone avoided. "Put it back," he said to Dr. Higgins. "That device, put it back." Dr. Higgins stared at him, horrified. "We don't just implant unknown objects into animals." "Then Lola dies," Fred answered quietly. After a torturous hour of debate, they re-implanted the device fragment. Nayomi held her hands over her mouth the whole time. Minutes after the surgery ended, Lola blinked, moved, and crawled out of the water. She came back, alive again. No one in the room would ever be the same. Dr. Frost reported the incident to her colleagues. Because scientists tell each other strange things the same way sailors tell each other ghost stories. One of the people who received her message was Dr. Julian Mercer, head of the National Security Task Force Mystery Division, a man with the calm of a chess player and the paranoia of someone who has seen too many classified files. When he arrived at the rescue park wearing a navy jacket and a face that said, "I know something you don't," the staff almost froze. He approached Dr. Frost first. "You found a device inside a dolphin?" he asked. Dr. Frost nodded. "A fragment, yes." "And removing it rendered her catatonic?" "Yes." "And reinserting restored her?" "Yes." Dr. Julian looked at her as the same way people look at puzzles whose corners don't match. Then he asked, "Where's the dolphin now?" Fred stepped forward. "Lola's inside the recovery tank. She's stable." Dr. Julian stared at him. "Did you run an electromagnetic sweep?" Fred swallowed. Why would we do that for a dolphin? Dr. Julian said a sentence that would change everything. Because it might not be a dolphin. Not fully. The next week unfolded like a slow explosion. Dr. Julian began investigating, quietly, methodically, with terrifying efficiency. He visited old naval archives, he pulled data from forgotten servers, he contacted people who respond only with encrypted emails. And then he found something. A project that was supposedly destroyed 10 years ago in a nuclear explosion. A covert organization that used animals as ocean spies. Dolphins trained to gather intelligence on naval activities, equipped with almost microscopic devices that translated complex signals into surveillance data. Most of the program had been wiped out, all records gone, all personnel dead or missing. But Dr. Julian found logs from a side project, the one that was supposed to remain untraceable. There had been one survivor, a juvenile dolphin that escaped, a dolphin matching Lola's age. When Dr. Julian returned to Rescue Park, he met Fred, Nayomi, Daniel, and Dr. Frost in the dimly lit briefing room. He placed an old file on the table. This, he said to all of them, is not a coincidence. Lola is the last remnant of an organization that never should have existed. Fred shook his head. You saying she's a spy? Naomi whispered to Daniel. That sounds insane. Daniel looked at Dr. Julian. She barely responds to humans. She doesn't even fetch a ball. How can she be a spy? Dr. Julian replied, because she wasn't trained to entertain you. She was trained to listen. Silence swept the room. He continued, Lola's device wasn't a debris. It was a signal processor, a receiver, a behavioral modulator. Removing it cut off from the system that maintains her neurological stability. Fred whispered, but the organization, it was destroyed? Dr. Julian shook his head slowly. Destroyed doesn't always mean dead. After the revelation, the rescue park changed. Security tightened. Researchers monitored Lola constantly. Naomi stopped wearing her usual seashell earrings because they jingled and startled the dolphin during the night checks. Daniel took every extra shift he could, even though he barely slept anymore. Fred buried himself in data, trying to understand the pattern Lola produced. One night, near midnight, Fred was in the lab replaying Lola's strange vocalization. Daniel entered quietly and asked, still listening to her? Fred nodded without taking his eyes off the wavefront on his laptop. It's not random. It's definitely a message. Daniel leaned against the wall. A message to who? Fred answered, that's what scares me. 2 weeks later, while the sky outside glowed cold blue, Lola began clicking non-stop, fast, urgent, and rhythmic. Fred ran to the tank. Naomi followed him, breathless. Fred exclaimed to Dr. Frost, she's sending something. The signal is peaking. Dr. Frost yelled to the technicians, track every frequency. The lab filled with noise, the sound of machines, the sound of Lola, the sound of science and fear mixing. Daniel came running from the outer gate. What's happening? Naomi grabbed his arm. Lola's calling someone. Fred suddenly froze. His screen displayed something impossible. Coordinates from out of the signal pattern. A location in the ocean, not far. Dr. Julian stormed as alarms blared. Look down the tanks, shut off outgoing frequencies. Fred pointed to the data. Sir, someone could be listening. Dr. Julian stared at the screen with the face gone pale. They already did. Hours later, after the chaos calmed, Dr. Julian gathered the team again. Lola's call was answered, he said quietly. Naomi whispered, by who? No idea, Dr. Julian admitted. But the response signature matches the technology believed destroyed 10 years ago. Fred spoke softly. So, they're still out there? Dr. Julian nodded. And they might want their creation back. Naomi squeezed Daniel's hand. Daniel whispered to her, we won't let them take her. But Dr. Julian said something none of them wanted to hear. This is bigger than us. This is national security, global security. Fred asked in disbelief, are you taking Lola away? Dr. Julian hesitated, then said, we don't have that choice anymore. Before dawn, the rescue park was surrounded by patrol personnel, not dangerous looking, just quietly alert, like shadows that knew how to move without sound. Lola floated in her tank, watching everyone with those calm, sharp eyes. Daniel whispered to Fred, she knows something's happening. Fred nodded. She always knew more than we did. When the task force prepared the transfer capsule, Naomi leaned over the tank and whispered to Lola, stay strong, girl, please. Lola blinked, softly, almost reassuringly. The capsule descended, but then Lola clicked once. A deep, resonant sound. Fred jerked his head toward the control room. The sensor's light had lit up. Dr. Frost leaned closer to the monitor. She's not sending, she's listening. Listening to the ocean, listening for the answer she already received. Dr. Julian's face tightened. We're out of time, move her now. But the truth was already bigger than any of them. Whether the organization was dead or alive, whether the ocean still carried their machines, whether Lola was the last spy or just the first of many, no one knew. All they knew was this. A dolphin had carried a secret for 10 years. A secret that surfaced because one boy looked too closely at the waves. And secrets like that don't end. They wait. Somewhere out there, beyond the soft shoreline of Savinro Beach, something was listening. And maybe, just maybe, it was coming back. After 3 months, Fred tried to recontact the security force and tried to find what happened to Lola. But only answer he got was Lola was moved to some secret location. Whether she was alive, dead, or become a test subject was a mystery.